mean, unless you want to.
It says record.
It's old fashioned.
We'll try that. Okay, so it's on.
recording,
We're gonna, but they're watching it. They're not allowed
Is
to
there
do
a light?
anything. It
It
just says REC, and then you see the seconds coming down on the back.
Flash and that'll go green.
Yeah, we've seen it when it
I'm
tried to.
colorblind, so you're gonna.
Well, what it did before was
Yeah.
when we didn't have the power on it, it wanted to power down like a certain amount of time for a battery saving
That's
feature.
Right. Yeah.
So we had plugged it in, but then just now when I plugged it in, it said you could only record when it was unplugged. So we'll just watch it. It's not going to be as long because now we know, now we know. And so I'm going to play Barbara Walters and Oprah. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, but we do want to thank you for doing it again for us today. We do, we were just talking about before you came in about advertising and how we want to get some folks to come. There's actually folks on campus. We're talking about the medical community that are, they're very behind it. I talked to someone yesterday and they're like, can we go? We want, because this is something we're working on. We want to work to combat this. And they didn't know that we were doing this. And so they want to come and see it. And well, because they see patients all the time, because when you're a student at Wichita State, you can go to the clinic and it doesn't cost hardly anything. It's way less expensive. Yeah, come to school. No, I'm serious. I went yesterday and I got some blood work done and something else, and because I've been downsized at my job. Last year I worked at Learjet, program manager, making money, worked all years, and I got cut. So you go from blah to oh my god, and then all the insurance, I've always carried it, so I lost it. So I'm a full-time student, and so I have a new job that I just got, but there's no insurance.
Wow.
So I was like, I needed to go in, found out I had tendonitis, and then they gave me the bill was $42. I was like, what? I was like, and they said, yeah, if you're a full-time student here, you just pay cash and you pay for the visit, the blood work, and the prescription's like $4. And I said I should just go to school permanently. Because,
there we go.
Because even with the copay with insurance, and that's something we actually didn't talk about that I might put into there. There's some of the questions that I wanted to ask. So I'm just gonna, we're gonna start from scratch. This all part we're talking about is gonna be edited, and just wanted to talk to you to find out a little bit more. We're gonna kind of go back again and just find out first. Where are you from?
Okay.
Okay. So where are you from?
I don't think I should say Heinz 57 like I say to most people, but that in itself is kind of like because I've moved so much. I was born in Michigan. I didn't even live in Michigan for maybe 1 year my whole life. Then I lived in Illinois, Iowa, Florida, then Georgia, and then out here. And I can't believe it's like going on like almost 10 years already here. And it was 10 years down in Florida and Georgia both for each of them. And it's kind of like, wow, I kind of credited myself for moving around so much, but at the same time, you don't make very many friends. You don't establish somewhere. I'm like going, okay, I'm going to stay.
So why did you start out moving so much? Now, you have, how many siblings do you have?
I have 5.
5, and what order are you?
I am the second to the youngest.
Second to the youngest.
Yeah, I'm a middle child.
Okay, so what did your parents do? What was their line of work?
They were educators.
Okay, and what type of education did they specialize in?
They basically, my dad was a pastor.
Okay.
And my mom, she got her master's degree, and my dad got his master's degree in the high school, and she in the middle school and kindergarten. And so when they started schools, it was just nothing to them to be able to be a parent, and they basically,
so they set up these schools to, were these private schools that they were setting up? Mm-hmm. Were these Christian schools, Christian-based, so that parents could have an alternative to public school? Was that the purpose, or was it the type of teaching that they wanted to have? Did they want biblical teaching along with the regular, or did they feel that there was a problem with regular education?
Yes, all the above.
Okay.
thing that stuck in my mind the most was when my parents started to consider the option. They had just built the first dome school in Chicago so that the kids would not jump out the windows, and there was no windows.
Wow.
Guards at both doors. And they really felt like that there was a huge need in education, because when I came home from kindergarten through, I believe, 7th grade, they basically realized that I wasn't being taught.
Wow.
And
So how did they get the funding, and how did they get all these schools started? Did they work with the government, or did they do private fundraising, or how did they go about getting these schools actually started?
there was such a need that basically parents that were very well-to-do, or shall I say, um, parents that traveled a lot, needed an alternative to their children. A lot of these kids also, because they had different cultures, were looking at hardship in schools because they had to change gears so much. And a lot of the schools were behind or ahead of what they were doing. So the curriculum that they offered was based on where the child was, instead of where can I just set you so that you can, shall we say, maybe function in life later on. So that was an option of the schools that they started, and that was such a need that Chicago area donated land to the church so that they could actually have a different denomination in that area. And so when he finished the church, the school fit perfectly into the church. It was actually our establishment too, in the same building. And so we set it all up for schooling, and then tore it all down by the weekend. And so the building was multiple used. And when other people saw how well that worked, they would call him up and say, "Hey, we want this to in our area also."
Say that's a popular model today in Wichita. You do see that a lot, where you'll have the and some are keeping it denominal, but some are actually opening it up now. As you'll see, they may have it attached to their church, but they're opening it for parents to have that option. So growing up in that environment with educators, I'm sure there's high expectations at home. How did the order go in terms of it's okay, everybody is out of school? Did you guys work, was some of the work, did you bring it home, like the PACE program where you work at your own pace on your own level? So did you have homework at home, and then did you have, who had to do all the chores? Who had to help clean and make dinner and do the yard, and who got stuck with all that? Was there any one person like you, or did everybody get it divvied up, or how did that work?
Everyone but myself went to college. So during the summertime, it was kind of like a time for like vacation slash education for being in this Chicago area, which was really nice because we went to the museums and stuff like that for, looking at what they're going to do for the school. So that's one reason why I absolutely love Chicago, because of the museums, and why I like Wichita also. In the art, because it says, hey, look at me. During the winter time or what have you, there were pretty severe winters, and so you did have the school days that you had to go into the summer. And because the curriculum was at their own pace, as far as being able to work at their own speed, you could have, a parent come in the middle of the summertime, and the kids would be scoring their own work as well as taking a test. So yeah, it was very versatile, very flexible. Yeah, it grew so fast that it was like wildfire.
So then that's why you guys moved around so much, to go and help spread this and help to grow these type of things. So outside of that, what was life like at home? Was it a strict upbringing? I mean, very religious?
With the chores, with the chores and stuff, everybody pitched in. It was kind of a family affair. I guess what I was trying to say also was, nobody took anything for granted. That's one of the things, I do not complain about doing the chores here because it's like everything has to be respected and in line. But yeah, we also realized too the time factor was a criteria because when I was a kid, if we didn't have time to read books or what have you, we would listen to the radio. And it was Christian radio. It was kind of like how to use your imagination because you really wanted to be looking at that book and reading,
Right.
and for your whatever time span that you had for free time, and we would listen to it, on headphones or what have you on the radio when you were doing our chores or what have you, and that was I guess a big discipline area in our lives.
Yeah. Now, did you start getting, as you got into your teen years, um, did any of you guys or the siblings start kind of delving out into, when you come from that background, they always say the world, so did you have anybody kind of delving out there, trying it out, the music, the scene? I mean, did you guys start heading that direction?
My parents really tried to educate us what the world had to offer. Um, as you're a teenager, you really have to experience, or shall I say, kind of try things on for yourself. And one of the biggest things that, it stuck in my mind was, alcohol and what it did to other people.
Yeah.
And they would show us movies and stuff as far as what the criteria were. And when we had family time, that was basically around the supper table. And the biggest thing that I can remember is I used to stutter really bad, and my sister was kind of like reprimanded because she was correcting me. And so they let me get into the conversation. But I quickly learned that if I didn't speak their language, I wasn't going to stay in that conversation for very long.
Right.
So, I mean, it was kind of really interesting because my younger sister, normally, they're the smart ones or whatever have you, was kind of telling my older sister, which she was a speech major, how to spell dictionary.
Yeah.
And it was a very, shall we say, learning curve and in seeing what can happen versus what if you tried it yourself.
Right.
Atmosphere.
So were you a very affectionate family? Was there hugs and kisses before bed?
Yes and no. My dad was extremely strict. He was raised out of 14 other children with himself. And yeah, and every single one of his brothers went to war, and he would pick up the newspaper. He was a newspaper
News
thrower.
hound, yeah.
And he literally would read the newspaper before he'd throw those papers to see if, one of his brothers was still alive or what have you, where they were. So, and his oldest sister, died over the simple fact that she cut her hand and passed away, and she was like his mom too.
Yeah. So how did you, as you got to college age, or you're going to kind of, where did the break come from being raised all over the country in your home, in a Christian home, to going off on your own? Did you meet somebody, or did you go off by yourself to college and stay behind, or what happened next?
I kind of jumped in from the frying pan into the fire. I did not know how to step out on my own. My mom, really wanted me to stay home. I guess she was kind of like having the nest syndrome.
Empty nest.
Yeah, and I was pretty much immature when I left.
How old were you?
I actually stayed in high school an extra year, so I was right at 19, and had a child out of wedlock by 20. And it wasn't because I was pregnant when I left. It was simply because the lack of education in that area.
Right.
And a lot of old school parents, and I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but they look at how they were raised, and then they realize that, hey, maybe we should tell your children instead of letting the schools do it for you.
Right. And they're uncomfortable with the subject of sexuality and talking to you about that other than don't.
Exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right. And so girls a lot of times just they want love, but they start out in that direction, and a lot of times it leads.
Well,
Yeah.
my sisters, a lot of, I guess, my older sisters went to, or my younger sisters went to private schools. And being in private schools, there's like a 6-inch rule, especially at Bob Jones University. You just, this is just probably too close for a
Right.
guy in
Yeah. So there definitely probably wasn't a lot of dating going on.
No. My sister brought home a guy that was driving a motorcycle, and that wasn't cool.
Oh yeah, no, banished to the bedroom. And so with that, though, of course, then you have to come up with your ideas of love and romance and that kind of stuff on your own, from books or just from what you hear, movies or whatever. So, did you stay with the father of your child when you had this child, or was it just a passing?
My parents thought that they were gonna, shall we say, fix the problem.
Right.
And they didn't really look into his background, and he had already been in jail here in Kansas. And he knew the system, and so he wanted to marry me so that he could basically make sure that he could have that child for himself.
Right.
And I don't mean that lightly.
Wow. So what was his angle? What do you mean by that?
I was trying to avoid that question.
I know,
I think
but
you picked that one up.
Well, and it leads to the reality of what we're talking about today and how we're
Right.
here.
He basically told me that he hoped that it was a girl so that he could molest it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I was not, like I said, I was very sheltered, and I only stayed with him for one year. My daughter had just turned 1, and we started the court process, but of course that lasted for at least 10 years until I found my second husband, and he finally gave me the divorce.
Right. So were you able to help at least prove to protect her?
No.
Were you able to protect her?
No.
So you had to suffer through some really serious
I
items
basically,
with this man. Did
Yeah.
he ever get held accountable down the road?
No.
No. So
to this day, my daughter, she called me up last year, and she said, Melody, of course she likes to call me by my first name.
yeah.
Mom, I'm free of cigarettes because that was my husband's, or should I say ex-husband's,
Right.
pacifier to her cigarette.
Really.
Put it in her mouth.
So who ended up raising her?
Basically everybody in the neighborhood. And
Really?
that was the size.
So did she live with him or with you?
I raised her maybe 4 years out of her whole life, and that was only the school years that were only the school days, no holidays, no weekends, no summers.
So you had to go through the court a lot to even try to.
And the time span that I did see her was for Halloween, because he knew that that was a holiday that religious people did not really celebrate.
Right.
And then top it all off, he thought that it was, shall we say, smart of him to make sure that since I did not want to admit that I was the molester, that he needed to place it on me so that the courts would say, you have to be supervised visitated.
Right. So you're going through all this turmoil, thinking, you're raised good girl, all this stuff, and your first experiences outside of that is with this man that really caused all this hurt and all this. So then now, how did you move on to your next relationship? How did that happen?
That one was interesting because he came fresh out of off the streets. He was a father of 5 children. He was 10 years older than me, and buying his drugs for my first husband, and I did not know.
Oh wow!
Basically, I worked at a store that was just like Walmart. They were testing it out, and it was I believe Japanese or Chinese owned, and it was like a Walmart. And
Was this in the Wichita area or?
no, Florida.
Oh, okay, in Florida. Okay.
and I got carpal tunnel, and they had canceled my insurance because I was working from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning and standing on my feet in a deli. And I got carpal tunnel off the meat slicer, and I was giving all my money to an attorney just to be able to see my daughter on the visitation. Supervised
Was she in
visitation.
Florida with you, or were you at least nearby where you could see her in quickly, or did you have to drive, or did they have to bring you in a? You said supervised visit, so did you have to meet at a certain place at appointed times all the time and move your schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably saw her in the average of maybe 2 times a year, and one of the years was when my grandparents on my mom's side were going to. They were already in their 90s, and they were going to be moving for Christmas, and so they wanted to see the whole family. So that was my visitation, was to be able to see for 1 hour.
So then, how long were you? Did you marry this guy, this second guy? Was he? Were you attracted to him because he was older and he felt like a protector type, or
No.
did you just like the bad boys, or what happened? I mean, how did you end up in that? Do you think? I mean, you don't have to go into full detail, but I'm just.
I met him because I was trying to cash or should I say, get change for a $100 bill, because my ex, or should I say, to be ex-husband, was dumping the child on me because she was sick, and it was a weekend late at night. I needed to get medicine for her, so I needed to change the $100 bill, and no one would take the $100 bill. So I found him on the street selling pizzas.
Oh.
He wouldn't give me change unless I bought a pizza. And so we finally connected through his phone number, and he realized, I guess, who my ex was through the child.
Yeah.
And it's a small world.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter where you go, who you see, they say there's an average of how many people you're going to see. You're going to see somebody you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always say that Wichita is a big, small town. All the
Yeah.
time when you do business or you go to school, it doesn't matter what
when
you
you
do
have an
here.
ex, you can never have it big enough.
Yeah. So with this guy, how long were you with him?
Exactly 10 years.
Wow. Did you guys have any children together? No.
No, the first destroyed that opportunity. Basically, I stayed with him for that long because at the age of 12 years old, my first ex knew that my daughter was going to have the choice of where she wanted to live. And my second was abusive, like my father, and so he basically was not a role model for my daughter, and my daughter, of course, didn't want to stay with me. Simply in that respect, because she did not want to accept her father as who he was.
Right.
And
That's pretty young to have to take all that in.
Right.
That's a big subject for a 12-year-old.
Oh yeah, and I knew that I had very short period of time with her. I knew too that when she turned 12 that I probably was never going to see her again, because he would basically kidnap her and take her other places besides where I was supposed to be able to, see her, what have you.
Right.
So when I finally did leave him, it was simply because he realized that I was leaving him. I had a vehicle I could at least sleep in or, reside in. I was trying to go to work in a town that was more than 45 minutes away to drive to, because, the world's not big enough
Right.
in your own town. And so
What type of work were you doing? What type
Factory.
of jobs? Factory work?
yeah,
Like assembly?
I
Or-
was the fastest at flipping pants and sewing the crouch in the pants.
Uh-huh.
And basically, a lot of the girls could not do that because you were flipping it.
Mm-hmm.
You were sewing it one direction and then you were sewing it the other direction.
So you made pants. So you sew.
Yes.
You were on a sewing machine.
And it was on what do you call it? Commission.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it was piecework.
Yes.
Yes, gotcha.
Piecework.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. So you're sitting there working hard, and you'd had carpal tunnel before too. So you're
Yeah.
working on the sewing machine. So during this time, how old were you in this time frame now? Would you say in your 20s, in your 30s? Where were you at?
She was oh my goodness. She was probably when I left him. I would say 16, going on 17, real close to it.
But I mean, at this point, now that you're with the second husband and your
Oh.
daughter's 12,
Oh,
I'm moving us. Yeah.
I don't know how old I was.
Oh.
She was 7 years old when I finally married him.
But the whole time, your first husband was raising her, right? And so, did you ever have suspicions that she's being assaulted as she grew up into her teen years? I mean, was there, and I understand this is sensitive, so, but I mean, was that something that bothered you, that you worried about all the time with her? Did she ever give you any indication?
Oh yeah. She would act out. I couldn't put her in a daycare even when she was young because she would act out.
Okay, so
we're talking about sandbox, dumping sand, and shoes or something or socks missing, stuff of that nature.
Yeah. So was there ever a female in the home? Did he choose to have someone come in and act as the wife or the stepmom for her?
Oh yeah. He had the inclination of always having a sharing. He swore to me that he didn't know how he would keep getting all these sharings, but he went through at least 5 sharings before he met the last one.
Wow. So he called them sharings instead of
sharing. Yeah,
gotcha.
But yeah, my second husband, he was just never home. He guess he thought he was God's gift to women. So.
Right. So then you're dealing with, because you said growing up that you had gotten some abuse from your dad. Was it more physical abuse, or was there any sexual abuse?
It was physical.
Was it just a stern guy?
Yeah, he just is straight-laced.
Didn't take it. That's it. So how did you get from Florida to Kansas?
Like I said, at schools. And my parents were looking to retire, and so they wanted to teach at this school because they really didn't want to, have the load of opening up another school.
So you had to leave your daughter behind in Florida and come to Kansas, or?
No, she was born in Florida.
Okay. No, but when you came to Kansas, did you leave her there in Florida, or did she with her dad, or did you come?
When I with my second husband, she and I moved, and my husband went to Georgia because I was trying to get away from my first husband.
Okay.
I knew that there was something going on, but I couldn't put my
right.
my
But
hand
you
in.
had her now,
Yeah.
so she was with you. Okay.
Between the age of 7 and almost 12.
Okay.
And so between that period of time, we bought a house in Georgia, and it was the plantations that kind of kept the separation. It was probably about an hour drive in between Tallahassee, Florida, and where we were.
Okay.
And from there, she really thrived in the schools because when I advanced her when she was not in school down in Tallahassee, Florida, because he didn't put her in school, and that's the reason I actually got her back.
Oh, so he was literally keeping her captive at home.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so when she finally did hit school, they said she was going to have to take summer school. Well, her dad, I knew, was going to have her, and I was like, no, that's not going to happen either. So I taught her as much as I possibly could, and because I taught her so much, the first year that she was down in Florida schools, I moved her into the public schools in Georgia. They said she was 2 years in advance.
Awesome. That's
yes,
wonderful.
At 7 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you come from a really good educated background, so you knew what you were doing.
Yes, she she would give me the storybooks and say, "Mom, read this," and I'm like, "No, you need to read this, but you read it so well. You put the punctuation just where it needs to be." And